My name is Jessica Bierbrower. I work here at the Great River Road Visitor and Learning Center at Freedom Park. Thank you to everybody for joining us today. What a great turnout. We're very excited to have Wendy here. I want to say a couple quick thank yous. I see a few people who maybe have never been here before. So thank you to the folks who make these programs possible, our wonderful presenters, our fabulous volunteers, and then our funders. So the Prescott Foundation is actually the responsible funder, and then our individual donors as well for this program that allows us to provide fantastic programming for the community and beyond. So how many of you are from outside of Prescott? Maybe Hastings even? All right, fantastic. If I could very quickly just poll the audience and ask how you heard about the program, and if it's word of mouth, from this lady, that's totally fine. How many, word of mouth? Paper? Did anybody see it in the Hastings Star-Gazette?
Yes.
Okay. All right. We do sometimes make it into the paper. We have a great Facebook page. We have a wonderful email newsletter that you can sign up for on our Freedom Park website as well. So if you go to www.freedomparkwi.org, you can see all of our programs on our website, but if you go to the lower right-hand corner, you can click on the email newsletter and sign up for that, because we do have a lot of really great programming coming up. Generally, most of our programs are free to the public, again, because of that generosity from our local community and our funding agencies and our individual donors. So thank you for helping us figure out where people are seeing this information, because we're always trying to do a better job of connecting with the people that might be interested in programs like this. So now it's my turn to introduce Wendy. Wendy Loomis has been a landscape designer and horticulturist for over 30 years.
Yes.
She has a wife, Karen, who's here.
Karen is here.
And many children and grandchildren and a big garden. It sounds like they have a wonderful life. And I'm very excited to hear more about how we can all be nourished by nature. So thank you for joining us, Wendy.
Thank you. Thanks, Jessica. Thanks. My name is Wendy. I have been a landscape designer for many, many years. That is my profession. I'm not here as a landscape designer, however. I'm not here to impart wisdom or to give you facts. We can all get Google. Most of us can Google. My son has coined a term for people like me. He calls us technotards. Anybody else a technotard? Technology isn't my thing, but I could Google and find out how nature impacts us as far as brings down our blood pressure, impacts our bodies in different ways, and we can use it for medicine and all of those kinds of things. This isn't that. This presentation is more about how nature makes us feel. And at the end of the day, isn't that what it's all about? Is how we feel. I mean, you get to the end of the day and you say, was it a good day? I felt good, right? So it's about mood, how nature can impact our mood, because the talk is based on my idea that there is a theory, my conspiracy theory, that nature is conspiring to take care of us. That nature is out there all the time, conspiring, trying to figure out ways to take care of us. All we have to do is plug in. So, some people may accuse me of using this slideshow as a way to, Jessica, here we go. We're off to a good start. As a way to show off my love for photography. I plead guilty to that. It also may appear as a way for me to show off photographs of my beautiful grandchildren. Guilty as charged on that one as well. So How does nature heal us? How does nature make you feel? A lot of the pictures that you see, probably, I'm going to say maybe, I haven't counted, but maybe 70% of the pictures you're going to see, 80%, are from right around here. Specifically Hastings. Some of the pictures, I could probably see the area that these pictures were taken from here. Does that look familiar to anyone?
Yep.
Where is it?
It's down at Lake Rebecca.
Yes, exactly. That kind of fallen down old dock down there that you can go stand on. Sometimes, as in photography, nature and the feelings you get from it is all about timing. How do you feel looking at those pictures? Calm, sort of peaceful, maybe even a little melancholy. Jessica?
I feel like you captured a moment in time that could be kind of fleeting, because sometimes the mists can be there and then disappear.
Exactly.
Kind of like a special time.
Right. It's
Maybe only you caught.
and that in photography, that's true as well. That you may be there at that exact instant to capture that photographed. You may be in nature at that exact instant for that deer to be walking past you on the path, or that bumblebee to land on that flower. And our job is to plug in. Nature also helps us remember. I'm not here to impart wisdom. I'm here to help you remember how nature makes you feel. Do you remember as a kid flying a kite and how that felt? And how it sounded when that kite first catches the wind? How it felt to be up in the branches of a tree? How many of you have been up in the branches of a tree in the last 5 years? Good for you. That's great. Just connecting with nature as a kid, we think back and we remember how that felt. We remember so many of the smells and the sounds and how it felt. And you feel the rough bark of that tree and the smooth bark of the crabapple tree. Nature takes us out of our toxic environment. I'm not going to get into a big, long dissertation on technology and what it's doing to kids these days, because I don't want to sound like my grandparents. But technology takes us out of nature 100%. And we all are kind of stuck there. And we see our kids and our grandkids with their noses in their computers now. I'm not saying that's horrible. There's some good things about it. Here's one. We're here, we're looking at nature when it's too cold to be outside. So we'll take this. But removing ourselves from that and getting us into the natural world does all of those physical things, but it makes us feel something differently. It makes us feel something other than anger at the latest political Facebook post or stress at the last time you checked your bank account online. Anybody know where this is? Spring Lake Park, yeah. Beautiful Prairie Restoration. How does that make you feel? Taking a walk down that path. Can you smell it? If you were to say what you heard, what do you think you hear walking down that path?
Birds.
Birds, bees, exactly.
Crickets, yeah.
You think that's good for our bee population?
Oh, yeah.
You think that's good for us?
Oh, yeah.
To get out there and walk through that? I didn't use the other picture I have of my 7-year-old grandson who wasn't anywhere near a bathroom and needed to use the facilities. Community.
Give us those things.
Community. Nature doesn't need to be solitary. We think of being in nature as being alone. And creating community around nature, people that are like-minded, but also people that aren't. I'll have a picture later on here of my 15-year-old granddaughter going for a hike, and it wasn't willing. Yes, it wasn't willingly. But when we create community around our natural world, we involve all of our senses once again. We involve smell. Hey, do you smell that? The conversation becomes about feelings rather than about what do you know and who do you know and who's doing what to who. I have a great job. As a landscape designer, I get to be out in nature, in the natural world. It's also a stressful job, believe it or not. I do some big projects, and my job is to get the right people and the right stuff to the right time, to the right place at the right time, to keep my customers happy. So there's some stress involved there. Even though it's the natural world, there's some stress involved. I come home at the end of the day to this. Walking out of my garage and into my backyard, my mood changes. Now, do I sometimes look at how many weeds I have to pull? Yes. I'd be lying if I said that wasn't true. But I often have a cocktail waiting for me, or a glass of wine on the patio, surrounded by nature. If you're rushing home to get dinner on the table and to get to the next thing, we had kind of a ritual at our house where we do what's called the garden tour, the evening garden tour, and it doesn't have to be long, but a walk through the yard, even a walk from here to there that involves nature to de-stress. Nature helps us escape our, not just our toxic environment, but it sets a new mood. It takes us out of our heads where we're running all those stressors around in our head. Anybody know where this is? Nope. No? It's in Wisconsin, actually. I'll give you a clue. Over by Hudson. It's a state park. Willow River State Park. A hike to the falls. It's a beautiful park, yeah. And there's a great hike that takes you to those falls. And you can get underneath them. What do you think it sounds like under there? What do you think it feels like? Look at the rocks. Can you feel that? It's kind of moist and damp.
Tried it one time.
Did you?
Yeah, it was a little scary.
It is a little
I
scary.
didn't make it down that far, but I know some people did.
Makes you feel alive. Just a little scary. How about this one? Hastings, right. Early morning. Quiet, peaceful, relaxing. What a great way to start the day, or a great way to end the day. These are all things that you already know. I'm not giving you any facts. I'm just helping you remember what this feels like, especially on a day like today. How about this one? You're close, yeah. We're on the levee. Yeah. Exactly. This is more in the evening, facing west. Another nice, quiet, peaceful evening walk. Alone? Think about how that would feel, just for a moment. Close your eyes. How does that feel? And now think about how that would feel a little bit differently if you included someone you really cared about along with you. Just one person. How does that change how it feels? Makes it better, doesn't it? Yeah, that's great. How about your 5 best friends? How does that change it? Right? We enjoy it in a different way. There's more energy involved. There's more conversation around the beauty that you're seeing. Maybe some memories. Detail. Sometimes we forget to look close. We stand back and we look at a beautiful garden and we see it and we say, oh, isn't that gorgeous? And then you get your nose up close to it. Sometimes it looks better, sometimes it looks worse. You see all the holes that the insects have eaten, the slug holes in the hosta, right? And sometimes you see a beautiful creation like that. If you're there, what did we talk about earlier? At the right instant. And you're paying attention. The detail of the seeds and the petals and the stems. Places where birds have eaten the seeds. Who has a childhood memory of bleeding heart? Seems to be a really common one.
Are they native plant?
Yes. Well, the wild bleeding heart, not that particular variety. Seeing the detail in a new bud before it opens. It's kind of looking at a teenager, isn't it? Not exactly at its peak. Not exactly at its most beautiful. But so much possibility. So much promise. So much hope. Standing back, looking at the beauty of that coral burst flowering crab, that big ball of pink. And you would drive past my house in a few months and look at and see that and say, oh, what a beautiful tree. But would you say, oh, what beautiful buds? And those buds are bright pink, and then they open up and they're light pink. And it changes as the plant goes throughout the season. And then they close up, and a piece of fruit starts to form. Looking at it all the time, looking at the detail. as it changes. This goes kind of to the heart of my theory. I know how the eye works, what its primary desire is, to lay its gaze upon the beautiful and for beauty to wink back. We forget the part where the beautiful is responding to our appreciation of it. Is it beautiful if we're not recognizing the beauty? I don't know. It's kind of like if a tree falls in the woods, does anybody hear it? It's the mystery of nature that makes us feel calm, because we don't have to have the answers. I'm not here to tell you the botanical name of that plant. I could, but that's not what this is about. Nature reminds us that setbacks are temporary. That'd be something hard to have nature throw at us right now, wouldn't it? Right? But it's beautiful. If you can look past that initial feeling of dread, if you choose not to find joy in the snow, you will have less joy, but the same amount of snow. This particular picture was taken in 2000, and I think it was 2012 or 13 when we had that big snowstorm. It was around this time. We had a big dump of snow.
Last year.
We did it in April last year. This one was, I think it was right around this late March, early April, we had a big dump of snow. And a little kid, that's still a big, beautiful dump of wet, buildable snow. There was a weekend that Karen and I went up north, and we brought snowshoes and skis and had intentions of going on some long snowshoes and doing some skiing on some of the beautiful trails up in the North Woods. We got up there, and there was a huge ice storm. I mean thick. An inch of ice covering everything. There was no snowshoeing. There was no skiing. There was hardly any leaving the cabin, except to go out and take some beautiful photographs of some of the most beautiful things in nature that I've seen. Everything encapsulated, every dried winter bud, every branch. See all the icicles hanging from this? The sun. Nature teaches us to make peace with what we can't control. The happiest people recognize that if you can't control it, it's not worth agonizing about. If you can change it, get to work. But if you can't, nature teaches us to surrender. Our neighbors had been nurturing that ash tree, treating it for ash borer so that it would stay healthy. Had a beautiful shade garden underneath. It was the centerpiece of their backyard. This was also a summer that we were on a garden tour. Our yard, this happened about 4 days before the garden tour. Our yard is right here. What could we do? our garden wasn't going to be perfect. There was a huge shade garden there that had been flattened. 2 big white pines, beautiful, this big around. They were still standing. All the interior branches stripped completely off. At our house, we tend to deal with things with humor when we can. This was a art in the garden tour, so we turned it into art and framed the view and surrendered to what nature had to offer. Nature teaches us to be persistent. Do you see those plants coming up in the cracks of the sidewalk? And you think, what the heck? They're working so hard to be there. And we look at it and we consider it a weed. And they, against all odds, you'll get that little flower that blooms coming up in the cracks of the sidewalk. Jessica, could I get you to pull up that YouTube video? I've got to keep track of my time here. This is a video that the one on plants talking to each other. This is what kind of got me thinking about this whole conspiracy theory thing, is I started reading a lot about how plants communicate with each other. They are talking. There is a network happening underground where plants are talking to each other. This is new information. Oh, nice.
Just in case.
Okay. This has only been, I think it was like 2009 or 7 or 9 or something, where a scientist started doing research on this and finding out that plants communicate with each other. Now, this is a little science-y if we get it running. If we don't, no worries. I can just talk about it, not with the same effectiveness. Woo!
Got something.
But plants have roots, and then they have hair roots, and then they have, beyond the hair roots, mycelium, which is fungus. And you're okay. You're okay. It gets really sciencey.
Okay.
But the other one's more important, so we'll work on that. You can work on that while I talk about this a little bit.
Okay.
We'll have it ready to go. So they're not only communicating with each other, but they're sharing nutrients. They're also sharing nutrients with plants that are not the same species as they are. Let me say that again. Plants that are a different species, they are not selective if they're like them. They're going to give it to them anyway if they need it. So think about in the woods, and it's winter time, and the fir trees continue to transpire because they're an evergreen. They keep taking in nutrients. Underground, they're sharing those nutrients with the birch trees, who have no leaves on them, and they have no energy coming in and out because they need leaves to do that. The fir have more than they need right now. They're going to send it over there and share it. Okay. Or you can get back to where I was, and we'll just call it a day if that becomes a problem. So when you think about the fact that they can identify need, they can help each other once that need is identified. They have the tools to do that. That's as much as we know right now. Research is still going on. What other things are they communicating about? when you walk into the woods, how do you know they're not talking about you? How do you know they're not communicating? Because like a tomato plant, if a tomato plant is attacked by a pest, through its root system, it sends out information to the other tomato plants in the area. Oh, that sounded good. Doesn't look good, but it sounded good.
Question.
Yeah.
Right now on Wisconsin Public Radio, Chapter a Day, they're reading a book, The Hidden Life of Trees.
Yes, Peter Walbrun. Yes.
And what you just talked about with the trees and the roots.
Mm-hmm. That is what that book is about. It's very sciencey. And the video that I was just going to show, which I'm not going to show now, but you could all look at it. Look up on YouTube, Plants Communicate. Bottom line, there was a little video that this very sciencey young woman, kind of great to listen to. She gets very technical about it, but the bottom line of the message is that plants are talking. We didn't know to what extent until about 10 years ago. And now we know they're talking a lot and sharing, and they want to share with us. We got to get in there to get what they have to share. There's some of the mycelium. It's their network. Just like we have this World Wide Web. Trees teach us about unconditional love. What you're looking at there is a hike that we took in Rainier National Park. On the bottom here is a nurse tree. A tree that hundreds of years ago died and crashed in the woods. And those little seedlings sprouted up and used that tree as it died out. The nutrients of that tree fed those little seedlings. And it is called a nurse tree. That's what it's called. You know that feeling? How much communication do you think is happening there? I think it's saying, look at me. Look at me. Been in the co-op and looked around at all of the medicine that's on the shelves? Medicine that are plants. Plants in capsule form, plants in pill form, plants in ointment form, plants in aroma form. Nature is trying to heal us. Okay. Anybody heard of the Whole30? The diet that you eat nothing but real food for 30 days? Does that sound weird that that's hard? For 30 days you eat nothing but real food. Real meaning not manufactured. Food is medicine. You can pay the farm or you can pay the pharmacy. Would our great-grandparents be horrified at the way that we eat? Horrified. Food is beautiful. Look at that. Look at that chard, that rainbow chard. Imagine how happy your body is to eat that rainbow. Healing, nurturing, feeding, giving us life. Saying, here you go. It's all yours. Live well. Be well. Anybody remember doing this? Still do? Yeah. That's what you call fast food to our grandparents. You could go down and take it off the shelf, and there was your meal. Still full of all the nutrients. Maybe not all. A good portion. Each bite of real food has the sun and the earth in it. Micronutrients. Micronutrients are in the soil. You can't get them from a factory. Our bodies need micronutrients. It comes from dirt. Can you taste those blueberries? That feeling of those fresh blueberries in your mouth, warm from the sun, you bite into it, it crunches and it explodes. Have you ever picked some berries, brought them inside, turned them into breakfast? You feel like you're doing something good for your body. But now, we feel like we're doing something good for our mind and our soul and our heart. You can smell it. You see any part of that breakfast that isn't from nature? Oats, berries, nuts, coffee, cinnamon. Even some of the really good bad food for you is a byproduct of nature. Now does anybody know that when you buy bread in Europe, this is in Spain. I went on a big hike, a pilgrimage over in Spain. And so my backpack was everything, I had everything I needed or wanted for 2 weeks on my back. I didn't have to carry food, but that was, we did have to carry our own like lunch. The bread in Europe is made differently so that we don't have, it isn't stripped of all the nutrients like it is here. This enriched flour that our bread is made out of is stripped of all the good, healthy micronutrients, and then we add stuff in to make it healthier. People that are gluten intolerant don't have the same issues with bread in Europe. Nature can help us teach responsibility, patience, care, nurturing. Not only does nature do all of those things for us, but it teaches us how to be more like plants. Feelings. There's a distinct difference if you were to only look at this picture and then block this one out and only look at this picture. You feel different looking at each picture? Does it give you a different feeling? Nature brings about that feeling of awe that we don't get that often anymore. Especially as we get older, we think, I've seen that. This picture was taken in this hike in Spain. You can see what we called each other, pilgrims walking along the path. I turned around to look behind me, not focusing on where I was going, but just took a look behind me to see where I'd been. Good metaphor for life. Nature gives us joy. Sometimes manipulating nature can give us a good laugh. Every one of you smiled when I pulled that picture up. Every single one of you. Getting a kid outside. Nothing gives them more memories, but you either. How many of you had kids or grandkids? The opportunity to get a kid outside, just breathing fresh air, let alone letting nature work its healing joy. We call him the fun guy. Once again, celebrating. Getting out there and making it fun for each other. Oop. Let's back up a minute. Hope. Milkweed, the seeds. You ever pull them out, blow them, watch them scatter? Tell your grandkids they're fairies floating away? Spring Lake Park again. Nature gives us a perspective that we don't have in our homes, at our computer screens, at the mall. You can feel the different feelings of those two pictures. Once again, this is about feelings. Here I was feeling part of something big. And I was part of it. Here, Karen, can you tell us what you were feeling? Maybe exhaustion. And sharing those feelings of being part of something big with people that you care about. Waking up those senses. Springtime, you can smell it. You can feel it. Anybody ever petted a fern leaf peony? It's very pettable. The kids actually do say, can we pet this plant? Fern leaf peony. It's beautiful. Smell. Have you smelled? You can smell that, can't you? This is the Pacific Northwest. Damp, soft, spongy. The ground felt like a sponge when you walked on it. The smell of fresh sheets off the line. On your bed, you crawl in at the end of the day. Can you smell it? Can you hear what I heard when my sister was showing me her bees? And the silence. Freshness. Those first strawberries, not from the grocery store. First strawberries of the spring. First blueberries. Can you taste that tomato? Right from the garden. The peas, fresh from the field. The memories of being in nature. Now that little guy did not dig that hole by himself. But because of that picture, he will always think that he did.
people he did.
Exactly. This kid, what she was really doing? Earning money so she could get some fake fingernails. That's how we trick them. Do you remember going outside and building forts? How accomplished you felt? What great camaraderie and teamwork you had with your neighbors and your brothers and sisters? It would get more involved. You'd have some ownership. Connecting. Sometimes you just let them have their phones. You see the phones in the picture? Uh-huh. It's hard for them to let those go, but bring them along. I'm sure that that picture was on Instagram. That's okay. Here's a spot that we saw earlier. The levee. Same spot, different time of day, different instant. Sharing with different people. Can you smell that farm post? She's going to remember that she moved that whole pile all by herself. Blake has a great memory of scratching his name in that watermelon when it was this big. We're creating memories that will last a lifetime, because when you think about your memories, do you think about the TV shows you watched? Or do you think about things that you did with your friends and your family outside, in nature, vacations, trips, boating, fishing? Fairies. On your right, you see the 15-year-old holding hands with her two cousins, who I had to convince to come on this hike. It took a lot of conversation. And it was, do I have to? Then when I made them leave their phones in the car, Shortly after that picture was taken, we were heading back to the car, and she said to me, "Grandma, that was the best day ever." Sometimes they just need an opportunity to experience life without the phone. Sometimes you invite nature inside. How many of you get yourself fresh flowers in the wintertime occasionally? It's a treat. How many of you had a rock collection when you were a kid? Or now? This is part of my rock collection. I collect heart-shaped rocks.
They're hard to find. They're hard to find?
They are hard to find, but then you don't get so many rocks.
I got 2 of them.
Very quickly, I first did this talk at Wise Funeral Home. They asked me to do this talk relating to grief. And my story is, this is pictures of my family. My mom's not in any of them because obviously she was the photographer. Shortly after this picture was taken, my father was killed in an accident at work. And it changed the way that our family was. Mainly because my mom is kind and gentle and quiet and talented. My dad was fun and energetic and life-giving. The energy in the house changed. Now, the irony is that my dad was an extrovert, my mom's an introvert. How many extroverted children do you think my mom was left with out of 5? 5. For me, within that family of extroverted kids, of which I am one, I did need to seek solitude. I did need to seek quiet. I still do. I always have. For me, that place is in nature. A few years ago, I went for a walk. My father was killed on April 1st, and so that's always kind of a memorable day for me, and I usually go for a walk, often out at Spring Lake Park. These pictures are from later in the season, but this is the area that I often walk in. When I was walking down by the river, you know, when you're down at Spring Lake Park, you're kind of up high. You don't realize how high you are. And I was walking down there, and this eagle came. He was right here, like where that clock is from me, and started matching my pace. Didn't just swoop past me, slowed down, flared his wings. You could hear that, the wind in his wings. I got to the end where you have to turn around or kind of head back up the hill, and I said, thank you. And I turned around and I headed back. And that eagle flared its wings and started going backwards and matching my pace. And did that for about half of the way back. For a lot of people, nature is symbolic. You hear people say, whenever I hear a cardinal, I see a cardinal, I think of my mom. Whenever I see a peony, I think of my grandma. I can't tell you why that happened, and I don't care. That is the mystery that's in nature that I have relaxed into. And now that I've relaxed into it, and I don't have to explain it, I enjoy it. Jessica, let's see if we can get that video to play.
Hi everybody.
Awesome.
Welcome to Revival. This is Greg. It's great to be back in my old stomping grounds of San Francisco. When I graduated UCLA, I moved to Northern California, and I lived in a little town called Elk on the Mendocino coast. And I didn't have a phone or TV, but I had U.S. mail. And life was good back then, if you could remember it. I'd go to the general store for a cup of coffee and a brownie. I'd ship my film to San Francisco, and lo and behold, 2 days later, it would end up on my front door, which was way better than having to fight the traffic of Hollywood. I didn't have much money, but I had time and a sense of wonder. So I started shooting time-lapse photography. It would take me a month to shoot a 4-minute roll of film, because that's all I could afford. I've been shooting time-lapse flowers continuously, non-stop, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for over 30 years. And to see them move is a dance I'll never get tired of. Their beauty immerses us with color, taste, touch. It also provides a third of the food we eat. Beauty and seduction is nature's tools for survival because we protect what we fall in love with. It opens our hearts and makes us realize we are a part of nature and we're not separate from it. When we see ourselves in nature, it also connects us to every one of us because it's clear that it's all connected in one. When people see my images, a lot of times they'll say, "Oh my God." Have you ever wondered what that meant? The O means it caught your attention, it makes you present, it makes you mindful. The I means it connects to something deep inside your soul. It creates a gateway for your inner voice to rise up and be heard. And God is that personal journey we all want to be on, to be inspired, to to feel like we're connected to a universe that celebrates life. Did you know that 80% of the information we receive comes through our eyes? And if you compare light energy to musical scales, it would only be one octave that the naked eye could see, which is right in the middle. And aren't we grateful for our brains that can, take this electrical impulse that comes from light energy to create images in order for us to explore our world? And aren't we grateful that we have hearts that can feel these vibrations in order for us to allow ourselves to feel the pleasure and the beauty of nature? Nature's beauty is a gift that cultivates appreciation and gratitude. So I have a gift I want to share with you today, a project I'm working on called Happiness Revealed. And it'll give us a glimpse into that perspective from the point of view of a child and an elderly man of that world.
When I watch TV, it's just some shows that are pretend. And when you explore, you get more imagination than you already had. And when you get more imagination, it makes you want to go deeper in, so you can get more and see beautiful things. Like the path. If it's a path, it could lead you to a beach or something, and it could be beautiful.
Just another day in your life. It's not just another day. It's the one day that is given to you today. It's given to you. It's a gift. It's the only gift that you have right now. And the only appropriate response is gratefulness. If you do nothing else but to cultivate that response to the great gift that this unique day is, if you learn to respond as if it were the first day in your life and the very last day, then you will have spent this day very well. Begin by opening your eyes and be surprised that you have eyes you can open. That incredible array of colors that is constantly offered to us for pure enjoyment. Look at the sky. We so rarely look at the sky. We so rarely note how different it is from moment to moment with clouds coming and going. We just think of the weather. And even of the weather, we don't think of all the many nuances of weather. We just think of good weather and bad weather. This day, right now, is unique weather. Maybe a kind that will never exactly in that form come again. The formation of clouds in the sky will never be the same that it is right now. Open your eyes, look at that. Look at the faces of people whom you meet. Each one has an incredible story behind their face. A story that you could never fully fathom. Not only their own story, but the story of their ancestors this present moment, on this day, all the people you meet, all that life from generations and from so many places all over the world flows together and meets you here like a life-giving water if you only open your heart and drink. Open your heart to the incredible gifts that civilization gives to us. You flip a switch and there's electric light. You turn a faucet and there's warm water and cold water and drinkable water. It's a gift that millions and millions in the world will never experience. So these are just a few of an enormous number of gifts to which we can open your heart. And so I wish you that you will open your heart to all these blessings and let them flow through you. That everyone whom you will meet on this day will be blessed by you. Just by your eyes, by your smile, by your touch, just by your presence. Let the gratefulness overflow into blessing all around you. And then it will really be a good day.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I've been blessed by you today, and your faces and your smiles. Thank you for being here. I hope that what this leaves you with is recognizing the wink of nature and being open to it and seeking it out. Thanks again.
Questions for Wendy?
Questions? Yes. Even though I said I'm not here to impart wisdom or to name any plants botanically. Yeah.
You were talking about plants communicating with each other.
Yes.
You also heard that we've discovered that trees actually have a heartbeat.
Yes.
But it's so slow that we've only just begun to measure it.
Right. And trees have a vascular system. We've known that for a long time. You know, we're just learning. It's like everything else. You know, we keep learning more things because there are better ways to measure and dissect and listen and all of that. So yeah. I don't think we've even scratched the surface.
I have a friend who thinks that she can go plant tulip bulbs now when they come up. How do you explain that? Not happening.
If she can dig a hole, let her do it.
Well,
It's a little frozen.
properly chilled.
I mean, there's spring bulbs. There are spring bulbs. It would be a little hard to dig a hole right now. But, you know, it's one of those things, the things, the mystery things. I have a client from many years ago, and we did a project there, and everything looked great, and she had this beautiful dwarf Korean lilac on a standard. If you know what that is, it's like they've taken a shrub and grafted it onto the trunk of a tree. So the shrub grows, but the tree doesn't grow. So it looks like a little lollipop. And it's beautiful, especially when it's blooming. They did a remodel. She asked me if we could transplant that mature tree, and I said no. Just like your friend, I would say, nah, can't do that. You're crazy. And then my foreman, who actually did the job for me and dug that thing out, threw it on his truck and brought it home. That was 11 years ago. It's still in his yard. So, that is the mystery that I'm talking about. Science says no. Try it. What do you got to lose? A few bulbs? Right? Yes.
What always fascinates me is I'm really good at some plants,
Uh-huh.
and then native plants that can grow out of rocks. And it's so frustrating because, you know, I'll take like something, wild raspberries, and come and try to transplant
Uh-huh.
at home, or
Yeah.
sage, or they say, oh, you can't kill it, it grows out of rock. I kill it. But then other things,
And then the fancy
yeah.
peony you can grow.
Yeah, and you know what, I think it's because, I believe that it's because nature should remain nature,
Ah. Uh-huh.
is what in my mind I'm saying. And then when you were talking about the peonies, I'm a pretty mellow person, but I like totally freaked out on my neighbor because I had these peony bushes of my grandma's, who I was really, really close to, and they traveled me from every house that I've lived in.
Oh, yeah.
And
Memories.
yeah, and I had them in a spot here in Prescott, and my neighbor guy put up a new retaining wall
Uh-oh.
and trampled them all down, and then mowed them over. And he said something to me, and I was speechless. If I opened my mouth, I would flip out on him.
Uh-huh.
You know? And then I wrote him a letter.
Uh-huh.
And because he says, I know you're upset with me. What are you upset with me about? And I couldn't even talk. If anybody knows me, that's not me. But I wrote him a letter and told him, you know, that peony bush meant a lot to me.
Yeah.
You know, it was careless of him. You know, he was very sorry, but it's like, it's a plant.
And you know, to my point earlier about plants having certain memories attached to them, and them being living things, living, breathing things. Yeah.
And actually, my grandma complained about the peony.
Yes, of
bush
course.
all the time.
Because that's what grandmas do.
Because it attracted all the ants, you know, the big ants, you know.
And you know why? Who knows why there's always ants on peonies? If there weren't ants on peonies, the flower wouldn't open. It eats there's like a sap around the petals that makes it all stick together.
So the ants that eat the sap, they wouldn't open at all.
Right? Or maybe not as, you know, maybe more stunted or something like that. Yeah. It's a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah.
Yes.
I heard probably 10 years ago that our house plants respond to us. I don't remember exactly how, but that there's
They're winking.
whatever.
Well,
Moving in the direction of the driveway, you're coming home, I'm not sure.
well, they say that when you talk to your plants, they respond. And do you know the theory behind that? Plants give off,
Oh, oxygen, we give off CO2, okay. So, yeah.
so we're exchanging. So you're getting close, you're talking to them, you're giving them more of what they need.
But well, plenty of addendum to that. Years ago, probably in the 80s when the spider plants were so popular.
Oh yeah, and the macrame.
Oh, my went for his mother,
Uh-huh.
and it never gave off any babies, and she died. It was a year or two later, and it was still hanging in the window. And we were sitting at breakfast one morning, he says, if you don't put out a baby, you're out the door. And all of a sudden, it started.
See, I'm telling you,
Hey, listen.
we don't know. Good point.
Well, they always said talking to your plants is good.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so,
For you and them. Yeah. Right.
you know, that it is actually true.
It is true.
Talk to your plants and tell them.
Yes.
So if you look around the room, you notice that we have a distinct
Uh-huh.
divide, aside from our wonderful cameraman Larry.
Jessica and I were talking about that earlier,
Do you
yes.
see that in a lot of your presentations like this?
Not as distinctly as it is here, but yes. Usually overwhelmingly female. Usually overwhelmingly, not overwhelmingly, but higher percentage of older females. I did it at a church. I gave the talk at a church the other day, and I would say there were about a third men. They came with a significant other, but still, they came. So, yeah, I mean, the book that you were talking about is a really good, interesting book about how plants communicate with each other. Then there's that additional piece of communicating with us. There's also a good book called The Last Child in the Woods, and it's about how children are being disassociated from nature. And it isn't just technology. It's schools taking recess out of the programming. It's the natural world not being as available to a lot of the kids that really need it, inner city kids. What's there? They call them food deserts, but it's also a nature desert. These kids don't have the opportunity to interact with nature. And it's affecting how we live, but it's also affecting our appreciation. Remember in the video when he talked about when we take care of the things that we appreciate? In order to take care of nature, we, as nature lovers, it's our job, it's our mission to encourage people to appreciate nature so that the next generation will take care of it. All right? Thanks, guys.
Thank you.